Welcome to Beyond Belief, Tales of Religious Exodus, where we delve into the personal journeys of people who've left fundamentalist religions. In this series, we explore their experiences within religion, their journey out, and how they found meaning and healing on the other side.
Nachshon, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Yes, welcome. I'd love to get to know you a bit. Do you mind sharing where you're located right now?
Right now I live in Brussels.
No way. Okay, cool. But you are not
Yeah.
originally Brazilian. Belgian
A
too?
Brazilian. No. So originally from Canada, Ottawa, actually, the capital.
Nice.
I lived there till about 9. And then when I was 9, my parents wanted to be in a more religious community. So we moved to Baltimore. And then from 9 to 16, we were there. And then from 16 to 21, or I should really say 22 minus 3 days, I was in Israel because that was our next move. And then from 22 minus 3 days, which is April 10th, because my birthday is April 13th. And also I'm 24 now. So it was 2022. So April 10th, 2022, I moved to Brussels and I've been here ever since.
Okay, very cool. I've got so many questions already. It's funny that the move where you've been, I'm in Hamilton, Ontario. Before
nice.
that, I was in Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Before that, I was in Israel.
Did you?
No, I didn't go there for yeshiva. I was already not religious when I moved to Baltimore. And you could ask what I was looking for, or as they say in Hebrew, what did I lose? But I ended up knowing more people in Baltimore than I did in anywhere else in the United States, because the amount of Baal Tshuvas who had gone to Eshet Torah and then ended up back or in Baltimore was like a huge percentage. And there were several factors, and that's where I ended up for a bit, and then ended up in Canada. So backing up, okay, so I'm just curious, in Israel, where did you live when you were in Israel?
A little bit everywhere. So originally in Jerusalem, I was in a yeshiva called Medrash Shmuel.
Of course.
I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Yes, I was in Medrash Shmuel for a bit. And then I was in Medrash Shmuel for about 2 years. And then I ended up going away for a bit. I realized I cannot continue in that place and ended up going to Speedy Friedi's in Beitar. Are you familiar with that yeshiva?
I was in Beitar too. That's another place I went to yeshiva.
Oh, that's so funny.
But at the time, Speedy Friedi was not in Beitar yet. I went to a very Israeli yeshiva in Beitar. It was a more recent.
I think Yitzchak, maybe?
Yitzchak Friedman.
Maybe.
It used to be like in Geula or something like that.
Right. I know. I remember now.
Okay, so you learned lots of Bakiyas.
Well, I mean, by that point, I was basically checking out. And then basically, I was there for maybe 6 months, 7 months. And then I left by myself. You know, I was ready. I mean, there's a lot going on at this point. In short, I already left. I moved to Haifa all by myself, and I found myself a job there, and I just basically went at it all alone.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's back up and let's get some more context here. This is really cool. So your parents are the wandering type, and without even guessing, I would guess that they're Baal Tshuvas. Is that a good guess at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So my grandparents, actually, my parents never told me this, but my grandfather on my mother's side is actually a ger. And now, when I grew up, I never had a problem with any convert Judaism. Like, you grow up, you don't, I mean, I definitely, like, where I grew up, nobody really cared. I mean, maybe not for shidduchim, but otherwise, I don't think anybody really cares. And, but my parents never told me. I think my aunt had to tell me in the end, or maybe my older brother. I'm like, what the hell? So, and my mother's mother was the sole survivor in her family in the Holocaust. So yeah, they weren't religious, but my parents I think they got married, and then they kind of decided they want to be religious together. And actually, I recently asked my parents why they became religious, and their answer was because there had to be a bigger meaning to life. And I'm like, well, I mean, it wasn't the place to discuss that. I don't think it'll ever be a place to discuss that.
Were they affiliated with a specific type of Judaism or specific organization that made them religious, or were they going solo?
I think it was pretty solo, actually.
Okay. So they kind of just did their own thing, figured out their own path. Your father didn't like study in yeshiva for a while or anything like that?
No.
Yeah. Usually the flip side of that is that they end up there. On one hand, no one's telling them what to do, which is nice, but it's a real piecemeal kind of way in which they're religious. And they are also particularly ignorant to the workings of orthodoxy and very naive. I don't know if that was your experience at all, but I find that flavor of Baal Tshuva is particularly lost.
Actually, I've never thought about that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's funny. He never really went to yeshiva or studied very seriously at all, actually. It was more just like, okay, let the kids do it.
Yeah, of course. That's the classic. Like, we're going to have them live the life that we wished we lived, supposedly, even though they got the best of both worlds. They get to play hockey and do whatever they want as
Yeah.
kids. And then as adults, they get to have the meaning part. How many siblings?
I am one of 9 in my family.
So am I.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. But you're not the oldest, right? Okay.
I'm
Any,
the 4th.
anyone else in the family not religious?
Nope.
You're the only one.
Only one. I'm
Okay.
the Nachshon Ben Aminadab of the family for going off the derech.
Exactly. So you're cooling down the boiling waters of hell for everybody.
We're in an ice bath here.
But some of your siblings are pretty young. What, you probably have like a 10-year-old sibling or something like that.
I do, actually. My oldest brothers are twins. My youngest siblings, they're a sister and a brother. They're also twins, and they're, I think, like 11.
Yeah,
So it's like a 20-year age gap, really.
So there's still hope.
I
The pattern that I've noticed broadly.
don't think so.
You don't think? You think they're all going to stick around? You'll be surprised. Oftentimes, it's the most religious seeming ones are the ones that end up leaving, because of that devotion goes both ways. And the interesting thing about it is that there's patterns of influence in the family as well, I would say. In both my parents, there was a brother who became religious, and everybody beneath them also followed suit. And I think the reverse can also be true. Like, if one person leaves, the older ones are kind of immune, and the younger ones oftentimes get influenced in that direction too. So who knows? We've got a timeline still.
Well, I want to be optimistic here, but the other thing is, like, my younger sister, she's going to get married in a couple months. So, all right. My younger sister, after that, she's what, 19, 20, and she's also basically starting. So we're talking what now, the 3 youngest now at this point? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why we were talking once about why is it less common for women to leave religion than men, at least in the Orthodox community. And one of them is because they just get trapped in a very young age into this thing through marriage. And the men, A, they get to date a little bit older, so they've got a little bit more time window to escape. And B, even if they do, they leave, they just walk away a lot of times. They're not held down the same way by the burdens of family, even maybe they should be, but that's oftentimes still a factor.
Yeah.
So if we go back, so you're the middle kid, your parents have moved to a fair amount of places. What was it like for you? I guess broadly, growing up in your family like it was, and specifically your relationship with religion.
Well, I really hated it. I mean, it's like there was never a part of me at the beginning that was like, it's not true, but I really hated praying or learning anything. I really hated it. I really hated school also. I enjoy learning things that are interesting to me. If I get involved in a topic, I could just go for hours. Actually, that's the thing that I found really frustrating, is that they just expect kids to want to learn all day. And if you don't want to, well, you just haven't found the fire, what is it? The Esha Torah inside you. Well, Esha Torah, there we go,
Yeah.
It's like, no, I just don't want to. It's not interesting. That's all. Like, Gemara is maybe cool as like a research project, but beyond that, no, actually, I don't care. I don't really care at all. So growing up, I didn't have a good experience. It wasn't that like I didn't have a strong belief in God at that point. It was just that I couldn't be bothered, sitting in shul and davening for like Shabbos especially was just a killer for me. Like, bored to death, and nothing to do. And then when we got to Baltimore, because we became more frum kind of as a family, although I didn't really realize it. Now you can't even ride your bike on Shabbos. It's like, now really, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So that was really the beginning. If you're just like at the very beginning, that was really my experience. Just boredom and kind of stupidity.
Yeah, so really not resonating with most of what's being done, and it's not engaging you, it's not interesting, and you're left with a ton of like to your own devices without any entertainment, without anything that like captures your imagination. Did you get some amount of like secular education or that kind of thing? Was there opportunities for you to some degree?
Yeah. So, I mean, full high school, full everything,
Right. Did you enjoy those parts?
Some parts of it. The problem is that I'm just thinking back to 10th grade. I was doing very well. I was kind of starking out at that point. How do I even translate that?
Becoming more religious or like aligned with like you could be drinking the Kool-Aid almost kind of thing. The vibe.
So at that point, I was really studying hard, and I was acing every test in Gemara and Talmud and all that kind of stuff. And then also, that takes hours and hours every single day, and then hours and hours just to finish the classes. And so I was really studying probably 10, 11 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, my height of my stuff, it was like 14 hours a day, right? So it's
good,
very
15
normal.
on my end, 15 at least.
Exactly. And so with that point, I'm curious, that point where you were starking out as it were, or taking it more seriously, was that because there was suddenly some buy-in or some click, at least temporarily for you? What was causing that switch?
That's a good question. I've actually thought about that quite a bit. I just felt very disconnected from everyone else because I was just like not interested at all, just causing trouble, and I really just kind of wanted to fit in. And I realized, and I think there is a certain pleasure you can get from studying Gemara or anything like that because it's like intellectual, and and there's a certain social status you get from it. And so for a brief moment, I was like, okay, well, this is actually pretty cool. I can do really well on my test. It's somewhat enjoyable to study, and so I just went with it.
And then what happened?
So then what happened? Well, what happened? Two things. First of all, is that it didn't really do what I hoped it would do. It didn't make me this amazing, famous guy with all that, I was really hoping I'd really fit in. It didn't work. And then the second thing, and actually this is the biggest crack for me, is I noticed people in yeshiva, especially already in Ner Yisrael, but already in Medrash Shmuel, where there were guys who were depressed in yeshiva and they were clearly not doing well. And I was never really depressed. If I was unhappy, I just kind of changed things, which is what I did. But I was never really depressed. But I noticed guys would like be stuck in bed all day. And like in my head, I'm like, okay, well, the Rosh Yeshiva, so the head of the yeshiva, he's supposed to know everything, right? He has Das Torah, which is, the Torah tells him everything he has to know about. I mean, it's such a laughable idea now, but like, he's supposed to know everything. Really, that's what Das Torah means. But these people are clearly not meant to be here. Like anybody with half a brain should know. And this is not like okay, now they should go off the derech. No, like even at the time I realized like these guys need help. They need real help. They're unhappy. They're stuck in bed. Like they were legitimately stuck in bed. And that's when I started realizing, well, actually he doesn't know everything.
Right.
And that was a big like, whoa, he doesn't know everything. What does that mean now? And then I also realized, like, for myself, like, there were things that were bothering me about myself, I wanted to understand things about myself, about my own life, and so I started reading a whole bunch of Sfarim, Orchas Tzadikim, Sil
Yeah.
Sharm. Oh my, I need to remember half these books. I don't
All
remember
those
all of
like
them.
self-help books, like, Derech Hashem, whatever, those
Baruch Hashem,
philosophy. And less
yeah,
like that whole like personal growth, self-helpy, supposedly bookshelf in the Jewish library, which is a very, very specific style of predefined, preachy, telling you things from a 300-year-old perspective,
yeah.
yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
To know
Why am
yourself
I
better.
depressed? Have you tried going to the mikvah this morning?
Exactly. Right.
That's where the ice bath thing started, actually, going back to our earlier discussion. You're
Sure.
supposed to go in
Yeah,
cold
yeah.
water. So
Yeah.
actually, it just started with Dari. He was the original Wim Hof guy or
Wim
whatever.
Hof guy. Exactly.
Yeah.
Minus the breathing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you start reading stuff. Now you're reading stuff, but the things you're reading are obviously religious texts that are supposed to help you get to know yourself better. How did that go?
Yeah. It didn't work. It just
Okay.
didn't work. It didn't work at all. Nothing. Nothing. And I really like at that point I could read anything and understand it. So, I finished
Yeah.
even some of the stuff by myself, no problem. And I was able to read through the stuff. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Like let's try to make sense of this all. And nothing worked.
Right. So there's a real
Uh
earnest attempt, like you really wanted to get the right answers, and you're
yeah.
also have a command of these books. So you're getting through them. You're like, if it's a matter of acquiring a certain amount of knowledge, certainly you seem to be acquiring that knowledge, and it's
Yeah.
not taking you any further.
Yeah.
So what's your next move?
So my next move, so this, it wasn't like on and off, which is to be expected, right?
A process.
It was a very gradual process. And it really only actually, this is a big important point to make. It only really started when I left Beitar, when I went from Beitar to Haifa and I was by myself without the whole community around me, because like social proof is a real thing. When I left and then I got a job, I started working pretty much right after I stopped putting on tefillin. Then I realized I didn't get struck by lightning today. And then I just kind of went and I stopped keeping Shabbos and then I remember Pesach came around and I had some bread on Pesach. I'm like, well, it was a really crazy moment. It's like, oh my God, like really scary. I have to say, like, there's a real fear, like really scary stuff. And because the thing is, like, I really believed it. I have to give you an example. When I was like 8 years old or maybe 9, I really believed in God. It's kind of hard to explain. Like when I used to write a letter to Hashem, please get me this. But like he was really real for me, right? So when he's that real for you, you can't just not listen to him like that. And so yeah, I stopped putting on tefillin, and then I stopped eating kosher. I didn't care anymore, and this and that. And then when I really finally said, okay, that's it, I'm done, is when I found the community on Reddit, the ex-Jew community. And that sealed the deal for me. I'm like, okay, I'm finished.
So
I
what was
don't
it
need
about
this
Reddit?
anymore. Yes.
Okay. What did you discover on Reddit that you were missing?
The community, I just
Just
didn't have
other
a
people.
community. I thought I was by myself. I didn't realize that there were because think about it, like I haven't heard anybody. Actually, this is another point I maybe want to make, but I haven't heard of anybody else in my class or anyone or around my age that decide to go off the derech, or as I like to say, off-roading,
Yeah. It's a better term.
So I think this is really interesting, and I haven't really heard anybody else make this distinction. And that is that when you go off the derech, the community, and my parents did this to me actually, and they didn't say directly, but I know they meant it. They don't see off the derech as someone who's just made their own decision, like, hey, this is how I want to live my life. They see it as a person who is like lost it, and they're now on drugs, and they're all over the place. Like, no, I go to the gym every day. Well, I try to. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm happier than I've ever been before. I'm not tempted by drugs. Anything heroin. Like, no. So, like, they don't see going off the derech as someone who's just healthy, sane, who's just decided this is not for me. They kind of pathologize it and say, this guy has really serious issues and he decided to go crazy. I'll give you an example. And this is when I realized this actually, is that I met up with my parents recently, a couple months ago. They kept telling me stories of guys who went off the derech and they started doing drugs. That's the key point. They started doing drugs and then they found some rabbi or something, and they're much happier now. And I remember at the time, like, okay, these are nice stories. I didn't really give it much thought. Then afterwards I realized, oh, that's what they're doing. They're trying to tell me, they're making that connection. It's really not.
Yeah, I have two things to add to that. Check out the interview with Katrin, specifically in the podcast. She talks about that it used to be, especially back in the day, and it's still sometimes possible, where some people left religion did go to drugs, but that was largely because of the oppression and lack of community and the ostracization. They were not given any skills, so they end up getting discharged from a community, have no safety net, no way to deal with society at large, and end up falling to the bottom. At the bottom of society, getting by involves prostitution, involves drugs, involves those kinds of unhealthy mechanisms that are there because you didn't give the person the tools to be a functional member of society. The reason it happened is because of the religious community in the first place. I think it's less common. There's more resources now. There's more, I think, safety nets. That definitely was, when I was a kid, the same type of stereotype. And I'll speak to that. I parodied this in my own website, Freedom Fight.
Of course I have. I really enjoyed a lot of your articles.
So I have one good laughs. Yeah, I'm glad. Exactly. So my whole goal is like to use humor. And there's one where it's an interview with the anti-Q of rabbi, which is me. And it's like Mishpacha magazine interviewing me.
Yeah, Mishpacha.
But it's from their perspective. And so every time they're interviewing me, I'm like doing more and more stereotypical behaviors.
Cheeseburger, right?
It's like we had another, I can't remember who it was, but he was like talking about like that's the epitome. He tried a cheeseburger and he was sorely disappointed. Like,
me too.
It's way overrated, right?
Listen, I have a lot of anger towards the community, but nothing comes in comparison to my disappointment to the
cheeseburger. Exactly. They hyped it up. You expected it way better.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And that's why I became religious again, because a cheeseburger wasn't worth it.
So you kind of had to disconnect from the community to think for yourself and not have that social pressure around you all the time. And it's still a big, scary process. At this point, how do you, I have a bunch of questions, but one of them is like, how do you identify yourself at this point? Like, how do you see yourself?
Well, I still see myself as Jewish, as in Jewish community, but not at all religious, like atheist for sure.
And what prompted the leaving? Like, things were going, how was Haifa for you, and why did you end up actually going up to Brussels eventually? What was that move?
Because there was no way to keep living life the way I was living. I needed to just, well, there were actually many reasons, obviously. In terms, I was not Israeli, and I didn't want to have to do with the work visa, but really, I just wanted to start over. I wanted to go to a new country and start my own life. I mean, over here I just go by Nick, and it's not just that, like, it's easier to say Nachshon. Is it Nachshon? How do I pronounce it? You know, it's not just that. Is that for me it was like, all right, this is my new name, and this is my new life, and I'm starting over, and it worked.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So just to clarify, your parents moved to Israel but didn't give you guys citizenship. That was a strategy to avoid the military?
Yeah.
It's common amongst the more religious. My parents, for several years, similar, was because I was born in Israel, but they withheld my citizenship. And for like 10 years, they kind of held out and did not we didn't have citizenship for that reason, because they wanted to avoid the military. And then they gave in. They were sick of renewing their visas, and I ended up an Israeli citizen, and I actually served in the army at the end. Why Brussels? Do you have citizenship? Like, what's that all about? How do you have
actually, my mom's from Brussels originally. She's born here. So I have Belgian citizenship.
Okay.
Well, actually, so this was like kind of at the end of COVID, and it was either Canada, going back to Canada, because I'm obviously Canadian as well, or the EU, but I just thought, Belgium, because I already speak a little bit of French. And so at that time I spoke a little bit of French. I figured, okay, I can probably get better. The problem was that Canada was still having these crazy lockdowns and this and that. And I was like, I just I cannot. If I'm going to go to a new country, I need to be able to have full access to everything and just find a job and get working,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what I did. I just decided to pick Brussels, and, the rest is history.
Right. So you have 3 citizenships in this case, where you could have had a 4th with Israel, no?
Canada and Belgium.
They never did the American citizenship either.
No.
They just lived there for a bit.
I don't think I really could have gotten it.
Could be that they just moved there. How did your mother's Belgian? How did she meet your dad?
She was, because her parents, they left Belgium pretty early. They left Belgium pretty early. I actually don't know the stories all that much when it comes to these things, which are
Okay.
for some reason not so talked about. Again,
Right.
there's a lot of weird secrets, but
Yes.
I think so. My mother's family moved to Ottawa, where my mother studied to become a dentist, and that's where she met my father in university, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Your parents, like they're able to work in Israel without being they get working visas and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, they have working visa at this point. They're also doing real estate and this and that, so they're all they're fine.
They're doing their thing. Okay, I
Yeah.
gotcha. Wow. So I'm curious, is there anything that you miss from being religious?
Yeah, actually, quite a bit. I think there's a lot of nice things about uh, there's a lot actually. Like there were some really nice moments for sure. Having a community like that. Um, I mean, that's a big word, but like even like the Friday nights when you'd have your little kumsits and you'd sing, like that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What else? Like having really nice meals together. That's really nice. I miss that for sure. Um, what else? I mean, really, honestly, everything probably just comes around from the word community. Everything that kind of came
Yeah.
with community. Now, of course, the
Yeah.
downsides are bigger than the upsides, but there are definitely upsides. There's no reason, there's no question about that.
Yeah. Is there anything that you still like remain connected to, or is more just nostalgia?
Connected to, yeah, probably just nostalgia at this point.
Yeah. So like not Jewish friends or like the local Jewish community. You're past all that.
Well, I mean, I still talk to some guys back in yeshiva. Actually,
Really?
I have a pretty crazy story for you. Actually,
I'd love to hear it.
Okay. So I've been talking to this guy for a little while. We've been good friends for a while. I'm not gonna say which yeshiva or anything like that.
Okay.
And he got married somewhat recently, and I've been talking to him about like religion. At this point, we were talking back and forth like, hey, look, he kept suiting me. Like I didn't really want to convince him about anything because I knew first of all it was what's the point, and second of all like what the hell. But he kept kind of talking to me, so I was like, all right, whatever. I'll text you back and this and that. And it's like, and anyways, so eventually he starts going to shidduchim, and of course, like the regular yeshiva bacher, he's got nothing to him. He's got no education. He's got nothing, and he's just gonna get like shipped off to get married. Maybe that's by design, right? Like you said earlier.
It
But
keeps you stuck.
anyways, and he tells me a week before he gets married that he only watches gay porn.
Wow.
And I'm like,
so he's already engaged at this point. He's
yeah,
engaged to
this
a
is a
woman.
week before he's gonna get married. And I'm like, look, man, I don't know if you're gay, but you're definitely not straight, And it's like, obviously, the story of Ner Yisrael on Shavuos night, that famous story there.
No, what's the?
Well,
I'm not.
apparently there's a story that goes that it was a Shavuos night, and then there were two guys that were in the laundry room, getting it on. But you didn't hear the story before?
No, why would I? I'm not part of that thing, but okay, they're getting it on Shavuos night.
Apparently, he got caught, and that was like a really big deal, also. But I'm just like,
Almost every yeshiva has a story like that. I
oh yeah,
remember
well,
our yeshiva had a legend about two guys, and some of it was larger than life, and some of it was probably real. Some combination of it.
yeah,
But if you think of the percentages of 10% of the population is gay, right? Approximately the
or at
numbers.
least bi, right?
Um, or at least by. So a yeshiva with 100 students, which is small, you got 10 gay people running around.
Yeah,
You know, and depending on their maturity or suppression or whatever, they could go around and fuck up a lot of other people. That is another part of all of this, right? There's a tremendous amount of sexual assault in the religious community in general,
yeah.
and a lot of that is towards the women.
I have a story for you,
In the
actually.
community. Sure.
when I was in Ner Yisrael, so ninth grade, I had this one roommate who at some point in the night he told me, "Look, I don't like something. I'm gonna put a case of water by the door of our dorm room." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't care." Like we were kind of on this weird term together. I'm like, "You want to put a case of water by the door?" He didn't really explain to me why. He just said he doesn't want the door to open like so easily, and he put a case of water, like
Because there's no locks on the door. Yeah, is that
yeah. There's no locks on the door,
no
obviously.
locks? Right. Okay. So he's keeping the door closed with a case of water.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I just didn't get it, and frankly, I didn't care because I was, like, so busy in ninth grade, I just did anyways, the ninth 10th grade, okay? How old was I? 17 or I don't even know how old, 16 years old. It came out that our counselor from last year was basically raping kids or something,
Okay.
and
And that's
that's
why he
why
didn't want the door opened.
somehow he knew or something happened, and,
Maybe something had already happened to him, and he was trying to prevent it from happening again.
possibly, yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think
I know
anything really happened to that guy, I don't know.
Oh, the counselor?
Mhm.
I'm sure not. I'm sure it got covered up and he was married off and shipped away.
Yep.
I know another guy who was sexually assaulted in Neriso.
Really? In Israel?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah. And molested, and oftentimes it goes on for years because who's going to stop it? And there's power imbalances and stuff like that.
It's
So
horrible,
it's
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 horrible.
it's yeah, it's highly prevalent. It comes from a variety of factors, but the basics of it is if you're gonna try to suppress sexuality completely, it's gonna just emerge in more and more deviant ways because you can't. It's too big a force to suppress completely. So it just ends up fucking everyone over. And
Literally.
the Catholic Church is famous for it, but Orthodox Judaism is just a lot smaller. But it's got same ratio of shit. Heimwalder, of
Of
course.
course. I
Uh,
remember those news, I was like, "No way." And I love
yeah,
Kid Speak, like, I mean, it scared me, those stories, but I like those books.
they're great books. Yeah, the stories. I think he was accused of molesting like dozens of children,
Holy
and he
shit.
had a nonprofit in Bnei Brak for the protection of children. That's the ultimate irony of this. I don't know if you knew
Can you
that
believe
part,
it?
that he was literally the head of a child protective agency. So the ultimate irony. Um, wow. Okay. Um,
Actually, just what you said
yeah,
before
yeah,
about the repress I mean, that's true about everything, it's like if you repress your experiences in the back of your head, your emotions, they're gonna come out one way or another, so you gotta deal with it
yeah.
somehow. So really, it's what
It's
you're
gonna make
saying is
it
true
whatever.
about everything.
It is. It's the same kind of reality that's just coming back to bite them. Um, so I'm curious, what did you find helpful? There's a lot of adjusting, right? A lot of getting used to this new reality, new countries, all of this. What helped you along that journey out?
What helped me? Well, much really helped me. I kinda just brute forced it, if I'm being honest. It was just like
Fair enough.
really, really nothing helped me, actually. It was really rough. It was very rough. It was really I had a lot of dark nights, where I was just really, hell, there were some nights I was just crying, like, just really lonely. It's really an intense
Yeah,
experience, like, I mean, you kind of lose a bit of your identity for a bit. That's really
yeah,
what you don't know who you are anymore because it's like it's such a huge part like, I don't think there's anything that's gonna make this process easy for anyone, ever. I think you're
hmm
gonna have a lot of really rough days if you decide to do this one way or another. Um, what helped me the most? Well, definitely find the community online. That was the biggest thing for me.
yeah.
The second thing, there's actually 2 other things I would say. The first thing is that you need to be, like, aggressively self-confident. Um
Okay.
And you need to understand that you're gonna make a lot of mistakes, okay? But that the fastest way to learn is just to make a lot of mistakes. And so you just have to be kind of a yes man, like, not in a really stupid way, obviously, but you have to just be like, "All right, I am right?" And in the back of your head, you gotta know that, "Hey, I'm probably not right about everything," but you have to just act as if you're right and just go 100%. And then the third thing I would say is that you have to write out all your thoughts. Uh,
Okay.
have it all written out. There are some really there's a nice I use UpNote for my note taking, and there's this other great app called Simple Mind. Making mind
Like
maps.
mind mapping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's even free. I don't even know. Maybe one time I pay for it, and just write out everything you're thinking. Okay, every stupid thought you have, write it down. Okay, and then make sense of it all. Because you're gonna have a lot of thoughts, and and really it all comes down to connecting the dots, you know. And so really, yeah, just every thought you have, put it down, you know, no matter how stupid or whatever you don't understand. Yeah, definitely. And then also bonus point, read a lot. Read as much as you can.
Mhm.
Read. My father once told me when he was back in university, he read books by the pound, and I think that's a great piece of advice. You know, get yourself a Kindle or whatever, an e-reader, and just read away. Read books, and don't read like the really popular self-help books, because those are, as they say, books are meant for people who don't read. You know, read books for people who actually read. You know, really,
Mhm.
like, you know, I mean, I can give some recommendations. Like if
Definitely.
you've been through a really rough patch in life, there's a really, really good book called Trauma and Recovery.
Mhm.
Like, this is a serious book. Like, you're gonna read it. You can't read this easily. Like, you're gonna read it and it's gonna be hard for, you know, a couple days probably. Trauma and Recovery, Dr. Herman, I believe her name is. I have it somewhere here.
Um, Judith Lewis Herman.
Herman,
Exactly.
yeah,
Very good.
yeah. That's a really great book. You know, read books, but like avoid the self-helpy books, you know. Don't read what's that habit book that I see everyone reading these days?
Yeah, Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit.
Yeah, don't, like,
Yeah.
just forget that stuff, you know. Like, learn, like, I don't know. Every time I see those, I kind of cringe just a little bit, because it's like, I don't know, they don't feel real to me, these books. Read real books, you know. Like, and the other thing is that, like, and this is something else that really helped me, and it's kind of off topic, but not really, because this would have really helped me if I knew this a couple years ago, is block out YouTube and social media. Like, literally block it out. And there are apps out there. I use an app called Freedom. And so for me, from about 10:30 at night until 8:30 at night, so I only have a couple hours in the evening, I can actually access social media. Do that for yourself, because what's going to happen is that you're going to leave your community and you're going to hit with a lot of anxiety, and then you're not going to know what to do with yourself, and you're going to end up spending a ton of hours on YouTube wasting time. Okay, and you can't afford to, because you don't have much time. You need to get better and move on in life. And so instead of instinctively going towards YouTube, you know, use these apps to force you out of all these time wasters and actually deal with the real world, and you know, kind of build out your map and understand what's going on. So I think that's really important too.
Very cool. Yeah. I love all this advice. That's the practicality of it is super helpful. I'm curious, when the write out your thoughts bit, A, did you come up with that on your own? And B, I'm curious, what came out for you? What were some dots that you connected when you were writing out your thoughts? What did it do for you?
Um, I think for me, it gave me one. If I would, it didn't really like change my mind in any big way. It more just gave me conviction of what I was thinking, you know, because it's like, you really, you know, you're in a community that really wants to gaslight you, like you're crazy. You just want, you know, you're really just some guy who wants to do drugs, like, you know, or some bullshit like that,
Exactly.
you know.
Sleep with girls. Exactly.
Exactly. And it's like, yes, I do, but also, um, but what was I gonna say? It's not so much that you're gonna learn more, I would say. It's more that you're gonna see your thoughts and you're gonna say, this makes sense. And so yeah, everyone's telling me I'm wrong, but look, this makes sense to me, you know. And you're gonna see your thoughts,
You're
and you
reinforcing.
cannot, you know,
Yeah.
you can't hide from that. So I think that's really the most important part about writing things down, you know.
Yeah. So it reinforces your convictions,
Exactly,
essentially.
exactly.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so I was gonna ask you then, on top of that, like, maybe this is a kind of a broad way to kind of start wrapping up, but you said it's gonna be really difficult. So I guess the question I immediately popped into my head is it worth it? What makes it worth it?
uh, is that worth it? Then, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze? Isn't that the line?
Right.
Is it worth it? I mean, I don't think that really crossed my mind. It was more just like I didn't have much of a choice. It was like, I just can't do this anymore. That was the thought going on in my head. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just can't do this anymore. And I didn't leave really religion because it didn't make sense to me anymore. I just left because it's like nothing made sense to me. It wasn't like I became some kind of philosopher or just studied like in a very academic sense. Like, no, I don't think most people leave that way anyways. It was like like just reading, like nothing, just everything started to stop making sense to me. I mean, I mean, this is another topic really, but it's like, okay, we go in there, a Amalek, right? We kill everyone, okay, men, women, and children. So basically, we become Hamas, and we do, like, do we do with parachutes as well, or paragliders, whatever they did?
Right, exactly.
Like, do we also?
It's the genocidal wish against an imaginary enemy, and then the apologetics reassure you that we don't know who they are. So
Yeah.
that's why we're safe. We're safe because we don't know who they are. If we knew who they were, we'd be genocidal.
Yes.
But fortunately,
Yes.
they've been lost to them until we need a metaphor, and we need to call somebody a Moloch, and then we're very quickly to do so. The Germans are a Moloch. Hamas is a
How
Moloch.
convenient.
Everybody becomes a Moloch when you want it.
You're a
So
Moloch.
it's very exactly. Yeah. Because you're a self-hating Jew, whatever it is that serves your purpose and your agenda at that moment.
Like that, just like all the rapey stuff, like what the hell? It's like just, I think, like, it doesn't take much of a brain. Like, I really don't think it requires much self-awareness, but like if you just open your eyes for basically 2 minutes and you just kind of look at like what the hell? Like, I mean, that should be a normal human reaction if you look at the Bible or the Torah. Like what the hell? Like, honestly, like what is wrong with this dude? Like, I mean, it's just like we were talking about sexuality earlier. Like, why does he care if I masturbate? Like, what is wrong with this guy? And like killing gay people, like, really? Is that okay? Why are we doing that now?
Right. Yeah.
Actually that affect, because me, for example, I'm bisexual. So like, yeah, all right. But
Okay.
like, so I've been in a relationship for over 2 years now with my boyfriend. And
Okay.
and like, I remember thinking, so I'm supposed to be stoned to death now? Like, is that really what we're
Yeah.
doing? And like, why though? Like, does this like what? Why?
And then the apologetics come in. I just love it. The apologetics are like, no, you don't understand. It was actually really rare to stone someone to death. You have to see it happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, it says you should stone him to death. So anything you're adding on top of that is, first of all, your own embellishments. And second of all, like, get the message, right? Whether or not it actually happened, you can see the Bible's attitude towards it, right?
Or they just go, or
very,
they go the other end. So it's like, okay, so you think gay people should be able to have relationships? So what does that mean? You think you should be able to have sex with a donkey now?
that's the
You
immediate
got
next
me,
thing.
actually.
First of all, you know what I go? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And this is where I'm like not even socially conformist, right? I'm like, if you are not
Knock yourself out.
vegetarian, okay,
Yeah.
then if you believe you can kill this donkey and eat it, why can't you have sex with it? I'm sure the donkey would prefer to stay alive.
Yeah.
This is my Shalom's very strange,
No.
socially, and not, but I'm a social nonconformist, and I refuse to conform also to secular society if it doesn't make sense either.
Right.
People are gonna be like, "Oh, you're totally perverted." It's like fuck it.
Yeah.
Like I go all the way
You haven't seen
on the
half of
things.
it.
Things don't make sense. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Okay, that's gonna sound good on the podcast, but I'm keeping it in. Fuck that. Now, can I ask for a second more? Because I wasn't
No,
aware
I'm
until
happy
now.
you're talking. I'm really enjoying this conversation, actually.
Being bi, being attracted to men, I'm curious if you could talk, because I haven't been able to really interview anybody around that much. Although if you check out Simcha's interview again on the podcast, we spoke a bit about that.
Yeah.
So what age did you know, and how was that for you within all of this?
So I actually really didn't know until I was like 20, or even later, actually 22, I would say.
Okay.
Because that's the thing about being bi, especially because I'm like, some guys are bi but really gay, or some guys are really bi but really kind of straight, but I'm really kind of half and half.
Like a spectrum.
And and so, like, growing up, I knew that I like girls, and so it never really occurred to me that you can also like guys, because it's not like being gay was, like, in my head, was never really demonized so much. It was more just like it doesn't really exist. It's like this weird thing out there that some guys like other guys. Like, what the hell, But we don't see them anymore, and they don't exist, except for the rabbi in the closet. But we won't talk about him either.
Right. It was always presented as a choice, right? It's like some dude, for some stupid reason, decides to have sex with another guy. Like, why he would do such a dumb thing, I don't know. We should definitely stone him. But it's like the absurdity of it was a key part, like you said.
And also, the part about, like, watching a movie with a gay couple, it might make you gay. Well, it's like, it's like, I have news for you. If that makes you gay, you're probably, anyways. Okay, so yeah, I mean, growing up, like, when I'm looking back now, I mean, I didn't really attribute this to much when I was growing up. Like, really, while I was growing up, I didn't give this a second thought. But looking back, it was pretty damn clear. I mean, I'd grow up and I'd be like legit looking across on the base measures to like other guys in my class, like, he's really handsome. That's all,
Yeah.
And like, I'm in Ner Yisrael, so like, we're in this really big, yeshiva room, and so like, I really got to like bring up, I really got to bring out like my telescope, and like get a good look. But yeah, I mean, I really just thought, it's just about being handsome. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just really funny to think back
exactly, right?
about
So
this
you
whole
didn't
thing. It's
say it
hilarious,
for sure. And how has your family taken to you mentioned some of it before, the stories they tell you and stuff like that. Taken to you not being religious in general and you being at least bi and having a relationship with a guy in particular.
Okay, so I just want to give a little disclaimer out here to other guys who might be listening. I don't know who's on this thing. If you're gonna try experimenting, especially if you're in Europe because it's really cheap here, get on PrEP. Okay, you don't want to get HIV. Use condoms. Be sensible. All right, like don't do stupid shit. At least do some stupid shit, but don't do stupid shit. Don't cross the red line. All right,
Exactly.
get on PrEP. It's like 15 euros like every 3 months here, so it's nothing. It's pretty much free. You pop the pill and you're not going to get HIV, pretty much. Okay, but wear a condom also. Just be sensible here. Okay.
Yeah.
But that being said, it went bad and good, I would say. So good as in my parents didn't like disown me or anything like that. Like we still talk. My mother has never said hi to my boyfriend, even though we've been together longer than my brother has been married to his wife. My
Yeah.
brother who's married, my older brother, he told me outright to never talk to me about my boyfriend. I should never bring up my boyfriend in the
To him.
conversation.
Yeah.
My parents won't say anything about my relationship with my boyfriend or anything to do with me and I mean, it's a really serious. We've been together for 2 years. It's not like a joke at this
Yeah.
point. Um,
They're pretending it doesn't exist for the
yes,
most part.
and
They're avoiding the whole thing.
I was
Yeah.
in a conversation with my mother not too long ago, maybe just a couple months ago, and she was telling me that the relationship with my boyfriend is, by definition, intrinsically abusive because, spiritually we're wrecking ourselves.
Right.
Um, my father is actually the coolest guy. He actually wanted to meet up with my boyfriend, and he did recently. He came by to
Yeah.
visit me in Brussels, and he actually met him, and we had a nice just meet up for a little bit. But my mother is definitely much more anti this whole thing.
Does it align broadly with the sentiments of your parents where your mother is, I guess, more devoted and your father is along for the ride?
I mean, generally, women are more religious, right? Isn't that usually the rule?
I don't always see it that way. I find oftentimes that fanatical attachment to the laws is like the man's job, and the women are oftentimes a bit more like spiritual or following along, doing what they're told, but not always. I've seen it go both ways. My mother is much less religious than my father
Yeah.
at this point. She's more spiritual. Like she'll go on with whatever has come into her mind that day is what she does, and it's always that is the exact right amount, whatever
Yeah.
that day's thing is. And my father remained committed to the same amount, to his credit in a way, the same amount of most of the insanity has just remained consistent throughout, which I can respect at some
Yeah.
level. I've seen the opposite too. My partner's parents, the dad has chilled out over the years. The mom is freaking fanatic, bulletproof socks, all of that stuff.
Bulletproof
So
to
it really
hell.
does bulletproof to hell. Exactly. It's going to solve all the world's
Yeah.
problems. Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here. So that's pretty cool. So it's really kind of a spectrum of responses, from terrible to decent.
Actually, I have one other thing
Um,
to say. Actually, my older brother, my oldest
yeah.
brother, when I first told him, we have never spoken about him again because I got the feeling that it's not cool. But actually, he did say something. Like when I first told him, hey, I'm in a relationship with this guy. He's like, the first thing he said, and he's the oldest guy. He's in Kollel, and I really got to give him credit for this. And I was like kind of shocked, but I also got the feeling he didn't want to talk about it, so I never really brought it up again. He's like, is he nice? That was the first thing he said. And actually,
That's
that
yeah.
was the best reaction I got of my whole family was him. Some random guy in Kollel with 3 kids, like
He has some decency about him still. Um, I was going to ask you or invite you to talk about you. You had specifically mentioned you wanted to talk about trusting yourself in yeshiva. Don't trust the people around you. The cult effect. Do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, it's a kind of a broad subject, but, like it's really a cult, like there's no other way to put it. It's really very cultish. I mean, it doesn't mean you cannot say this to it's not going to mean anything to anyone who's inside of it because when it's kind of pointless almost to talk about this because if you're inside there, it doesn't matter if I tell you, and if you're outside, then you already know. You know,
Yeah.
so but like, yeah, it's really serious, like I guess maybe the practical application could be is that if you're unsure, leave if you can, and you're not married yet and all that kind of stuff, try leaving the community for a bit, you know? Take a month, just go somewhere else by yourself. Don't bring your friends along, and just like, if you can, this is just an idea. Like if you're in yeshiva, okay, and you're wondering, you're just not sure, you're not sure. Probably you have like 3 different shadchanim trying to get you to get married, and your Rebbeim going after you, and you just don't know, okay? Go take a month off by yourself somewhere else, okay? And it's very important that you're not in another religious community. You have to be somewhere else. If you're in Israel, go to Tel Aviv or somewhere else. I don't know. Leave the Jewish community. Don't see another Jewish man, okay, for the next month, okay? And just sit with yourself and write down your thoughts, read books, and get yourself as educated as you think you can. And then come back after that month, and you want to have a bit of a Yom Kippur moment, not in the sense I think it was meant to mean, but you want to kind of have a moment where you can kind of like a lightning bolt, like, okay, actually, it's all dark, but then a bit of lightning comes by and you can see everything, and because when you're in the community, you're not going to be able to see anything around you.
Yeah, and it's only fair, right? Think about it this way. The metaphor that comes to my mind is, this is a bit of maybe it's tenuous connection, but I belong to like these family groups where, or even in real life conversations, where the religious people will talk about whatever they want, however they want, and it's just a free reign, right? But if you talk about things or act about certain things, you're being insensitive. You, the liberal person, are the required one who has to keep kosher around them, stuff like that. But they can freely espouse, pro-title, whatever it is that they're feeling that day. They throw it at you because that's their worldview. That's the absolute truth. And you are stuck on the side dealing with it. So in the same vein, like, why is it that if you want to break for yeshiva, you've been religious for 22 years, why can't you take a month off, right? You've been doing it right this entire time. This whole thing of like, no, you can't stop for a day. That's just an unfair skewing of your experience, right? So if you could make, again, we're appealing to logic, and a lot of this transcends logic, but the appeal can be made, right? The invitation
can be made. I don't have high hopes. You really need to be you got to be brave. I mean, that's it. Either you got to be really in a lot of pain or really brave. And I mean, honestly, those two usually go together, right? I mean, you got to have azus. All right, that's the word we're looking for. You got to have azus.
Yeah, which translates roughly into brazenness, or courage, depending on I guess the context, of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, by the rabbi who's giving the shmooze.
Can I ask you a question, by the way?
I would say, yeah, and I'll end with this. For myself, I would say that I was probably more in pain. People are like, "Oh, you're so courageous." I was like, "No, courageous. I'm in pain."
I gotta agree with that.
And so of those two, I love that distinction. I'm solidly either in pain and somewhat oblivious, probably socially. But I was actually going to say, this is the time in the podcast where you get to ask me any question you want. So perfect segue.
This is a question, and actually, this is a real question. This isn't just something I thought about for the podcast. This has been on my mind for a little bit. So, as you know, my sister is getting married in about 2 months.
Oh, right, because you mentioned it earlier.
Okay,
yes.
So I don't know what to do. Okay, so there's actually a couple parts to this question. The first thing is that I feel uncomfortable going there and just being publicly religious, because I have been living my life here, not very religious. Although it's funny enough, I actually have I've been moving in here recently, and I actually have my tefillin right next to me.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
You still brought them with you, which is telling.
I don't want to get rid of them. I think it's a really big part of my past. I actually really want to keep them forever, actually, because I think this is a part of who I was. I don't want to get rid of that.
Fast forward 100 years, we're going to some podcast somewhere, and it's like, my grandfather, Nachshon, he didn't do anything, but I was looking in the closet, and I found a pair of pants. And that's why I'm in Kiryat Sefer now with 12 kids.
Oh, no. Don't do that. That's what I'll put in there.
Don't put these on. Yeah, anyways. Okay, so you're not outwardly religious, right? And
no,
so you're going to this wedding.
Totally nothing, okay? But I feel very uncomfortable going back to my old community in Jerusalem. And everyone's going to see me there. And Frank, okay, what I want to do is walk around there like I walk around here. I don't want to change a single thing, okay? But the thing is that I am known to be a very different person there, because I kind of disappeared, okay? Everyone kind of knew me there as a very stark bacher. I got accepted to Panovich, the Eitznik side, actually, there at one point, if you can believe me. Okay, so I was really a top bacher there, okay? Yeah. I was really the top of the top. And I'm telling you, I feel very uncomfortable going there and being just walking in like this. And there's also the part of like, well, maybe I should just avoid the whole thing, put on a kippah, and just act it out.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, no, this is who I am now. And if you don't like it, then let's talk. But I'm not going to walk in there and just act like I'm okay, you know?
Yeah. It feels comparable to the classic coming out of the closet, and we actually refer to it in Hebrew as Letzet Ma'aron HaKodesh. So you Yotzei Ma'aron is when you come out as
Yeah.
gay, and you come out Letzet Ma'aron HaKodesh is when you come out as leaving religion, the arc. Um, and it's very true, right? It's literally a coming out moment where whoever sees you realizes a whole bunch of conclusions all at once, jumps to a bunch of
Yeah.
judgments, and that's something like in the gay community, right? You get to choose who you come out to and when,
I like what you
right?
said. It's
And
another
suddenly
coming
now
out,
you're
actually.
faced with
That's really interesting.
yeah, yeah, and that coming out is something that you might choose to do on your terms and how you want it. And of course, when you're not out, you're compromising on your integrity. That's always the flip side, right? Where you know any person who doesn't know that you're gay or bi, in your case, right, and you have to act straight for some reason around them, that you're not being true to yourself. But maybe it's convenient for you to not be true. Like not everybody needs to get your authentic self, right? That's a privilege that they can receive you
Yeah.
authentically. And if they're not ready to handle you, then they don't get that gift, right? That's you could frame
Yeah.
it that way, if you will. But I relate to that dilemma a lot. I not quite the same experience, but I all of a sudden I again disappeared, left Israel, then all of a sudden came out on Facebook as like hating religion, and everyone lost their shit because like who's this guy who has smicha who suddenly
You
is
got
shitting all over
smicha,
religion,
really?
and they really have smicha from Ravitz Berkowitz, the guy with the Lashon, you know Berkowitz.
Yeah, of course I do. That's from he's in Ner Yisrael, right?
Berkowitz, I don't
There's
know
a
if he
Berkowitz in Ner
was in
Yisrael,
Israel.
though.
He's in Israel. He's like Sanhedria in
Oh.
Jerusalem. He's now the Rosh Hashiva Veshet Torah. He had his own kollel. Maybe he
There's
still
definitely
does.
Berkowitz in Ner Yisrael also.
Probably. It's a popular Jewish name. He's famous for that Chafetz Chaim Lashon Hara book, which is not whatever. You know that one where like one a day you learn it.
Lashon
It's got a big
Hara, I
picture of
haven't
the
thought
Chafetz Chaim
about
on the
that in a
cover.
while anyways.
Yeah, exactly. We could talk about Lashon Hara all day. But yeah, so I have smicha from him. Not the best smicha. It was smicha for the purpose of going out and doing kiruv. It was one of those kiruv smicha gimmicks. But it sounds good. I have the diploma still. And so who's this guy with smicha who's just leaving religion? And it blew their mind. It undermined probably a lot of their beliefs. I'm sure they patched those back up. But it really shook the world. Now, I had the privilege of being virtual, right? So I could just turn off. I could walk away. I didn't have to deal with that in person. I've visited Israel a handful of times, and I've been not religious in front of my like cheder school teachers, like first grade, sixth grade, all those people. I'm still there, and I'm now not being religious. And I'll tell you, it's hard, right? Those
It's hard,
judgments
yeah.
and the power they have over you from a certain age, they're preserved in my mind as having authority, as authority figures, regardless of how I can intellectually tell you that they're dumb and primitive and backwards and have no sense of reality and are miserable, but then they give me that look and I can still cower, right? And so that's a very normal human thing. That's pretty much all I'll say. I think it's still obviously yours to navigate.
You know what? I'm going to think about it, but I think in the end I'm not going to. I'm just going to walk in there and just no kippah, nothing.
100%. And if you think about the fact that they do that all the time to everybody else, right? There's this narrative, be respectful, put on a kippah. They're putting on a kippah and dressing weirdly and making you super inconvenienced for 25 hours every week. There's a ton of shit that religious people put everybody else through all around
You know
them,
what you
right?
said that actually
There's no
changed my
regard.
mind, because actually before this I was thinking, I can't be bald, just wear a kippah. But you know what you just said that changed my mind? You said that they have power over me, and you're right. They do, and actually, kind of in
Right.
rebellion to that, I'm just not going to. It's like if it was just about not inconvenience myself, all right, fine, then I'll just wear a kippah. What the hell, I don't really care. But it's like, no. If it's back to that where you have power over me again, no, then I've had enough. I'm not doing that again.
Exactly right. So it's definitely find it very empowering, right?
But
That
it's
whole
scary. It's
that whole
scary,
aspect.
but you
It is.
do it. Something you just have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be very interesting to see how you find it.
Actually,
Um, I have an article on
no, no.
yeah.
If you want to say something, go ahead.
No, I'm finding you an article that I think you might find interesting. I have an article on my
I've read through a
website.
lot of articles on your website, just so you know. I haven't just looked through
Thank
it.
you.
I've been
I
looking at it for like the past year on and off, and like reading your emails. And I've had some good laughs. I was like, and you're reminding me about things I haven't thought about in a
amazing.
long time. I'm really a very happy,
Yeah,
enthusiastic.
you got to deconstruct each one separately. It's its own joke,
Yeah,
right?
and also the
Um,
Gehenim thing and
the
all that. The Devar Torah maker or something. At some point, you had that on there.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
exactly.
good.
Yeah, thank you. So I have an article on it's from my autobiography, or memoir. It's called Detox, specifically. And I talk there about, I think, similar themes around, the power and being self-conscious and all that type of stuff. And I think you might find the punchline interesting.
Okay.
So check it out if it feels
Yeah,
right.
I'll have a look.
Amazing. Anything else you want to ask me before we wrap this up?
Questions for you. That was actually a really big question I had in my mind. If I can say, actually, it's not really a question, but something else I would say that actually
Yeah,
really helped
sure.
me.
Yeah, I think that's
I actually
yeah.
wrote this down and I only looked at it now. I should send you something. Okay, now this is just a photo of me from my past, so you can see what I look like, actually, because I saw you had that note, but I actually want you to see it just for purposes of this, so you can see what I used to look like and what I look like now.
Can we include it in the show notes potentially? That's up to you. No worries either way. But I'm happy to see it. I'll try to describe it for people
No, it's
listening.
fine. It's fine. I'm really fine with it. Let me just actually, no, I know I favorited it because I wanted to prepare for it. All right, here we are. Give me a second. All right, here's a photo from, let's see the exact date, from February 18th, 2021.
Okay.
1 second.
How are you sharing
That's
it?
a good question.
If you want, you can even just share your screen and I could take a screenshot kind of thing.
Okay. Let me just exit that. Hold on. Share screen. Photo. Share.
Oh, that's great. Okay, let's grab that. Oh no, it's taking so long.
All right,
cool.
So let me
Hopefully
just let me just stop sharing for a second. I will find another picture so you guys can show a bit of a difference.
No, I don't think it got it.
Oh, didn't get it?
You can email.
I'll email to you. Yeah,
it
it's
didn't
fine.
get it. Yeah, it only took us. Yeah.
But I mean, here, let me just find a great picture so you can just see. Sorry, 1 second.
No worries.
All right. Well, it got a nice screenshot anyways. I just saw it now. Then share this. Oop. Nope, not that. This. So then this is me on a recent trip to Italy, actually.
Amazing.
And like, I'll send you the pictures afterwards, but
Yeah.
But it's really, like, hard to explain that, like, this is a brand new motorcycle. I love motorcycling. This is a trip I did by myself to Italy where actually I met up with my parents there, where we had some discussions. And, I went from
Okay.
Belgium to France to Switzerland to Italy, then back up to Austria, Switzerland, Germany, France, Brussels. So it was really quite a 2.5 week trip, and it was really amazing. But, like, if I would have told myself back when I was looking like that guy who was quite overweight, really out of shape and everything, and like really had no experience with the world and nothing going on for himself, like this would have been possible for you just a couple of years later, I would not have believed you. I would not have believed you.
Right.
And so,
Right.
like, yeah, you got to just know that, like, things are going to get better, but you have to just be, you have to be, you got to be, what's the word, just
Tenacious.
Azus, maybe, I don't know. You could just have to keep going.
Exactly.
Things are going to get better.
You gotta keep going. Yeah, I love that. That's such a great way to summarize it. To me, I look at that photo and I'm like, that's your reward. That's the culmination of so much effort. People think that that's just another photo, but when you contrast it with where you came from and what you needed to do to get there, I've got a similar photo 2 years ago, also on a motorcycle in Thailand. I was motorcycling today, actually. And I don't know if that's like a trend amongst this or what, but there's that feeling of freedom, right? And we're seeking freedom. That's what it is. And you're on the road to freedom, literally. And that's something I think what motorcycles represent. So one day we'll start a off the derech motorcycle gang.
Yeah, that's right. We go off-roading, that's it. Like I said.
Exactly. Off-roading. Perfect. Nachshon, thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beyond Belief. If you found the episode inspiring, please share it with others who might benefit from it. Be sure to subscribe to it to get updates about future